From Trade to Territory is the second chapter of NCERT Class 8 History. It's a long chapter, and so I have divided it into 4 parts. Part 3, that is Companies Rule Expands, will help you to understand how after gaining complete control over Bengal, the company embarked upon the policy of territorial expansion. The video will explain in detail the following topics. Number 1, Subsidiary Alliance. Number 2, Doctrine of Lapse. Number 3, Anglo-Mysore War. Number 4, Anglo-Maratha War. Number 5, Companies' Claim to Policy of Paramountcy. And number 6, some important questions for recap. Strategy for expansion. Before we begin, it is important to understand the strategies followed by East India Company for its territorial expansion. The company had basically adopted 2 different strategies for its territorial expansion. One was to pursue a variety of diplomatic policies like the Subsidiary Alliance and the Doctrine of Lapse. These policies were used to increase the company's political and economic influence on the Indian kingdoms before annexing it. The next strategy was direct military conquest. East India Company rarely resorted to military conquest, particularly in unknown territories. However, Mysore and the Marathas were the 2 southern kingdoms over which direct military action was taken because these 2 southern states had become a threat for the company's political and economic dominions. Subsidiary Alliance. Subsidiary Alliance was introduced by Lord Wellesley in 1798. This policy was so beneficial for the company that many a times the company forced the Indian kings to sign the alliance. What was this subsidiary alliance? It was a military protection agreement signed between the East India Company and the Indian ruler. By signing this alliance, the Indian ruler secured the military protection of the company against all external aggressions and internal unrest. This secured protection, however, was given to the Indian kings at a very high cost. The first Indian king to sign the subsidiary alliance was the Nizam of Hyderabad in 1798. Other important rulers to sign this alliance were the ruler of Mysore, Awadh, the Peshwa, the Sindhya, and the Gaikwad. Impact of the subsidiary alliance on the Indian kings. Number 1. The Indian king immediately had to disband his own army after signing the alliance, and the company's army was stationed in his kingdom, which made the Indian king completely dependent on the East India Company. Number 2. A resident was also soon posted to the court of the Indian king. This resident was the agent of the East India Company, and without his consent the king could not take any administrative decisions. Thus, the king lost his decision-taking power. Number 3. The Indian ruler had to bear the entire expense of the company's army stationed in his kingdom for his protection. The Indian king even had to pay salary to the company's army. If any Indian king failed to make the payment on time, a part of his territory was taken away as a penalty. And number 4, for this the Indian king had to cede territory to the East India Company, from which revenue was collected by the company for its expenses. Thus, the subsidiary alliance was an excellent strategy because firstly, it helped the company to maintain a large army at the cost of the local Indian rulers, and secondly, it helped to gain territories without fighting any battles. Doctrine of Lapse. The final wave of annexation occurred under Lord Dalhousie. During his tenure as the Governor-General, he had introduced a new strategy for annexation called the Doctrine of Lapse. One kingdom after another was annexed by applying this Doctrine of Lapse. So what was this Doctrine of Lapse? According to this policy, if in any Indian state which was not under the direct British rule, the king died without a biological male heir, the state was automatically annexed to the British Empire, and the adopted son of the Indian king was not allowed to sit on the throne. Now here you must clearly understand that it was followed only in the Indian states that were still independent and not part of the British Empire in India. The first state where it was applied was Satara in 1848. Soon, Sambhalpur, Udaipur, Nagpur and Jhansi were all annexed by using this policy of Doctrine of Lapse. Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore. Before we go ahead with the story of Tipu Sultan, we must briefly understand the background of Mysore. Mysore was originally ruled by the Wadayar dynasty and Hyder Ali was the commander-in-chief of Krishnaraj Wadayar II. As Hyder Ali rose to power, he started dominating the monarch and his government. Finally, in 1761, he seized the power and became the ruler of Mysore. Mysore had grown in strength under the leadership of Hyder Ali and his son Tipu Sultan, who is famous in the history as the Tiger of Mysore for his fierce and effective resistance against the British East India Company in the late 18th century. Mysore controlled the profitable trade of the Malabar coast. You can see the Malabar coast in the map. The company used to purchase cardamom and pepper from here. In 1785, Tipu Sultan stopped the export of sandalwood, cardamom and pepper through the ports of his kingdom. He also stopped the local merchants from trading with the company. This hurt the economic interest of the East India Company tremendously. Moreover, Tipu Sultan established a close alliance with the French so that he could modernize his army with the French help on the European principles, enabling him to effectively challenge the East India Company. This made the British furious and the company's officials started looking at Tipu Sultan as a threat who had to be controlled and crushed. A series of Anglo-Mysore wars were thus fought between 1767 and 1799. Hyder Ali won the first Anglo-Mysore war. In the second Anglo-Mysore war, neither the company nor Mysore won a clear victory. It was inconclusive. Company won the Third Anglo-Mysore War with the help of the Marathas and the Nizam of Hyderabad, and Tipu was forced to sign the Treaty of Srirangapatnam. Two of his sons were given as hostages to the British to ensure compliance with the treaty's term. The fourth and the last battle culminated in the fall of Srirangapatnam, the capital of the Mysore kingdom, and the death of Tipu Sultan, its ruler. Tipu Sultan died defending his capital Srirangapatnam. Mysore was given back to the Wadayars and a subsidiary alliance was imposed on the state of Mysore. War with the Marathas. Before we start this topic, it is important to understand how the Marathas were organized in the 18th century. The Marathas were divided into states, each under its own chief called the Sardar. The Sardars belonged to the dynasties of Sindhia, Holkar, Gaikwad and Bhosle. They were all held into a confederacy under the control of the Peshwa. The Peshwa was the principal minister. He was based in Pune. He was the military and the administrative head of the Maratha Confederacy. The expansion of the Marathas in the north brought them into conflict with Ahmed Shah Abdali, also known as Ahmed Shah Durrani. The devastating defeat of the Marathas in 1761 in the Third Battle of Panipat, fought with Ahmed Shah Abdali, had shattered all their dreams of ruling Delhi and led to a decade of political instability. This power vacuum created by the weakened Maratha resistance was exploited by the British to expand their dominions. By late 18th century, East India Company decided to completely destroy the Maratha power because the Maratha Confederacy was the last major obstacle in realizing the company's imperial ambitions for territorial and political supremacy in India. The company was also driven by the desire to control the trade routes and the resources of Western India. The Marathas were subdued through a series of wars from 1775 to 1818, known in the history as the Anglo-Maratha Wars. So what made it so easy for the company to subdue the powerful Maratha Empire? Since the Maratha Empire was a loose confederacy often engaged in bitter internal power struggles, it became easy for the company to skillfully exploit their disunity and weaken the overall Maratha power. The First Anglo-Maratha War ended with the Treaty of Salabi with no clear victor. The Second Anglo-Maratha War resulted in major loss of territories for the Marathas. The Third Anglo-Maratha War left the company in control of most of India. Through various treaties with the British, the Marathas lost regions around Delhi and Agra, Balasore and parts of Gujarat and Bundelkhand. The Peshwa was removed and sent to Bithur on pension. The Peshwaship was abolished and the Maratha Confederacy effectively ended. The dominions of Peshwa was annexed to the Bombay Presidency. The company's claim to paramountcy. In the 19th century, the company pursued an aggressive policy of territorial expansion. Lord Hastings initiated this aggressive policy and called it the policy of paramountcy. What was this policy of paramountcy? This meant that the East India Company's power and authority was supreme or paramount and greater than the Indian states. So Lord Hastings stated that to protect the company's interest, it was justified for the company to annex Indian kingdoms. In the 1830s, Russia's expansion into Central Asia alarmed the East India Company. So the company waged a prolonged war with Afghanistan between 1838 and 42 to establish its direct rule over the region. This was driven by the need to secure India's northwestern frontier as India was its most prized colony. Continuing with its policy of expansion, the East India Company waged the Anglo-Sikh War, taking advantage of the political vacuum created by Maharaja Ranjit Singh's death in 1839. Sindh was taken over in 1843 and Punjab in 1849. Punjab was vital for its agricultural growth, whereas Karachi, the capital of Sindh, had port facilities and was strategically located, making it a key port of the company's colonial trade network. Some important questions for recap. Number one, mention two key methods followed by the East India Company for its territorial expansion. Number two, why did East India Company regard Tipu Sultan as a major threat to its expansion in India? Number three, explain Lord Hastings' policy of paramountcy. Number four, who introduced the policy of Doctrine of Lapse? Briefly examine the policy. Number five, what was Subsidiary Alliance? How was this alliance used by Lord Wellesley to bring Indian states under British control? Thus, in the third part of the chapter, From Trade to Territory, we examined how, by pursuing an aggressive policy of expansion, East India Company spread its rule across the Indian subcontinent. In the fourth and the final part of the chapter, we will explore the new administrative measures introduced by the company to consolidate its power over India. Thank you for watching. If you found this lesson helpful, please like, share and subscribe Indrani's History channel.